Brody Grant is a Tony nominee this year for his performance in The Outsiders, the musical on Broadway. I'm David Buchanan with Gold Derby. Brody, first and foremost, congratulations on the Tony nomination.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Now that it's been, a month or so and it's kind of settled in that you're a Tony nominee, how meaningful is that? How does that make you feel, now that it's really kind of a reality?
Makes me feel great. It makes me feel like, okay, because I think like any actor, we all have our things where we go on stage, we do the scene, and even if, to the audience it might seem great, it might not feel great. We might not be like, oh, yes, I killed that. Like it doesn't happen like that every time. And even post Tony nomination, those moments still happen where I'm like, ah, dang, I could have done that better. I'm gonna try again tomorrow. I have a chance to do it tomorrow. Um, I think it has helped me to silence that voice a little bit and be like, okay, listen, even when I had a lot of shows where I didn't feel like I was like the very best in the world, it was still enough that people are moved by the story. It was still enough that people were getting what they needed to get from the outsiders. So, it's helped me to trust that, even on my not amazing days, or even on my greatest days, that either way, the story is being communicated. We're doing the outsiders on Broadway, and uh, it's a gift, because it's great source material. It's like, ooh, it's beautiful, such a beautiful book. So yeah,
Yeah, I've heard you say that you continue to dive into the novel, even after, the accolades and the success, you continue to go back to the source material. How has your understanding of Ponyboy deepened the more you do the show, the more you revisit the book? How has it changed for you across all the time you've done it, not just on Broadway, but, in its other productions too?
it's wild because every time I crack open that book, um, I find something that I haven't found before. It's like a great piece of music, like orchestral music. Like the reason that people love that music is like they can go back, listen to it, and be like, "Oh wow, I heard like, something the oboe did that was like different, that I've never heard before." Any great piece of art, you can go back and find something completely new. And yeah, I feel like the understanding of him continues to expand. I mean, every show now I kind of have a pre-show tradition. I mean, I have many traditions, but I right before I walk out, and go on the stage and chill for a little bit, I've started to I grab my cigarette, put it in. It was an e-cig, right? So I just like check it, puff it, see if I got the smoke going. I grab my pen, I grab my notebook, and I start writing just to check if the pen has ink in it. Because I don't want to hold up a notebook and say words and only have like two words written on it. So I check if that's written. And then I pick up the book that there is I don't want to give it away really, but like in our show, the novel is a part of it, especially at the end. And so we have a lot of copies of the 40th edition, 40th anniversary edition. And so I pick it up, and I actually got this from this Rick Rubin book, The Creative Act, where he talks about, you know, picking up any book, dropping it to the floor, seeing what page it lands on, and then picking it up, reading that page, and seeing if it speaks to you, kind of letting the universe like do its thing. And so that's kind of what I do. I don't actually drop the novel on the ground because I just don't want to do that, but like I just flip it to a random page and I read a little snippet. Sometimes a sentence is enough, sometimes a paragraph, sometimes a whole page. But there's always something that I'm like, oh yeah, I can take that and let it influence me while I'm in this show. Kind of like, setting an intention. Um, and in that way, I mean, I learn a lot about Ponyboy constantly. I mean, there's some things, there's sometimes when I flip to a page and there's something about describing how Two Bit is gallant in the way that he, is handling the situation at the drive-in, and I was like, oh yeah, that tells me something about Ponyboy and how he views him. So when I see Daryl Topher walk up to me and give me my denim jacket, I have that admiration for him. I have that respect towards him. Um, and it changes every day because every day I read a different passage. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing to hear. And I wanted to ask you exactly about what you're talking about, which is that kind of pre-show when Ponyboy comes out and the show hasn't properly started. But you
Mhm.
can really, I guess, get a sense of the audience. You can the house lights are up, you can see everybody in the house. How does the energy of that group of people, get you ready to dive into the show? Does it affect, how you start the show? It's such an interesting way for you to kind of get into character before, the proper show begins.
Yes, it is an amazing thing because I walk out and I'm kind of Ponyboy, and I'm in the Jacobs. I'm looking around. I'm like, this is not a space that Ponyboy is used to. A big fancy theater with horses on the walls and Pegasus, golden Pegasus, uh, little emblems on the booths. It's interesting to let that affect me and just be like, Ponyboy is never used to that, you know. Ponyboy is never used to that, and so I get to walk through kind of the audience and it kind of puts me in the world in a way. And as soon as I get up on that tire and start writing, um, I try to actually I do a multitude of things, and again, I try to keep it fresh and random because I believe that's what's going to keep the performance, fresh and alive. But I will always start with Ponyboy's signature, and then I always start with when I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house. I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. And then I write a noun, an adjective, a verb, and that's kind of a different intention that I set for every show. So sometimes the noun will be like Phoenix because I think that's a really interesting mythical character that for some reason speaks to me. There's something about rising from the ashes, which I think is very Ponyboy. I mean, literally, from the ashes of the church and rising above and somehow living through this scenario. I think of an adjective. Sometimes it's just how I'm feeling, which is like a lot of times grateful. Um, or sometimes it's like how I want to feel so alive on the stage. So I'll write like electric. I'll write a verb like sometimes I think of a verb that someone says in the show, like when Dali's telling us to survive and move on. I write the verb survive. I'm just like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to live. I want to live on this stage, and breathe on this stage. Um, as far as the audience is concerned, um, that's been an interesting thing because what I'm really asked to do in that moment is to just really focus on the writing. Like that's kind of Ponyboy's moment to get his bearings and start really reflecting on why do I need to share this today. Um, and there's a multitude of reasons. Because sometimes, I feel sometimes I really feel what happened a year before this musical started, which is the loss of his parents. Sometimes I feel like when I talk to the audience, sometimes I cast them as his parents. You know, sometimes I cast them as people in Brody's life. Sometimes I don't cast them as anything at all. A lot of times I'm really just with them, and it changes moment to moment. Um, but it's a really amazing gift that this amazing team and specifically Donnie Tamor has allowed me to do, which is, really since Ponyboy is going on the ride with the audience, I get a moment to really just sit and breathe with them, and that is a real gift. That lets me lets the nerves kind of melt off. Um, And what else do I do? A lot of times I will write a short prayer just saying, thank you for this chance. I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm playing this amazing part. I can't believe that I get to stay here doing the thing I love, stay on stage like the whole time. I can't believe I get because of that I get to do so much, and I also get to watch my fellow performers kill it every night. Um, and I also, sometimes, as you know, like life, it does its thing. You know what I mean? Like whether whether social media, however social media paints it or not, like it always takes things out of context. Like everybody that's nominated for a Tony this year or not nominated for a Tony this year or whatever, yada yada, is always going through something, something in their life. And so sometimes I'll pray on that. I'll journal on that and say, hey, maybe I'm supposed to be going through this right now, whatever it might be, whether it be anxiety or loss or whatever, fatigue. Maybe I'm supposed to be going through this right now because maybe it's actually what this character needs to feel. Um, so a lot of reflecting on that. I write a lot of poetry too. Haikus specifically are my favorite, just because there's plain and simple. But I really like writing haikus. Um, and sometimes I draw. Sometimes I draw little doodles of like horses and stuff like that. I don't know if that really answers your question, but it just to put a period on it, it really is a really nice chance to kind of meld with the audience, absorb their energy, and let that feed me, and then kind of turn around and read that passage that I've physically written when I stepped out in the bright sunlight, and then start the day. Sometimes I started this process in La Jolla, but also sometimes I journal a conversation between me and Ponyboy Curtis, and I write what feels like a real part of me. Um, and me holistically, and then Ponyboy, which is a very specific segment of my what I feel like is my identity and like my spirit. Um, and then sometimes I'll just journal as Ponyboy. Sometimes I'll even write um, paraphrase segments of the book, kind of just in my words, but still it's Ponyboy. Um, so it's just very interesting. It's a really awesome chance to get to do stuff like that. And then even later on in the show, when I get to write, sometimes I get to write a letter to Johnny, kind of a response to his letter during Stay Gold, and sometimes even a letter to his parents, or even Dally, or um, sometimes writing down I can see hundreds of boys with black eyes and afraid of their own shadows who ached for something better. Um, yeah, I could go on and on and on, as you can clearly see, but I love it. I love this source material. It's such a gift to get to be a part of it, really, and to get to play this role that so many people have invested their time and souls and energy into for so long. Since 1967, people have been reading the book, written from the first person of Ponyboy. They've all seen it through his eyes. That's just a driving force for me. Is I just don't want to let any of those people down, because I have a lot of family. I mean, my mom is the reason I read the book at all. She gave me the book to read when I was 14, and the rest is history. So, long-winded answer, but thank you for listening.
No, it's so beautifully said, and I think all of the work that you do every day really comes through in the performance, because the character is so lived in, and you make him just leap off the stage. I do want to ask you, there's so many scenes and moments we could touch on, but I have to ask you about Great Expectations, which I think has become, one of the greatest new songs of the season, and a
Thank
really standout moment for you in particular, especially because you get this moment to just like stand in front of the ensemble who we see, kind of through flashlight piece by piece, and then those soaring vocals. I mean, what does it feel like for you to perform that song and have that wall of voices kind of accompany you, all of these wonderful cast members who you've become so close with? It's such a beautiful stage moment.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. Thank you for your words on the song, and yeah, I mean, I really love it myself. I mean, I've always thought of Ponyboy's vocal. You know, I am a musician and a songwriter, so I tend to let musical influences, you know, determine how I want a certain character to sound. And you know, I always think of like the Lumineers and Frank Ocean for Great Expectations. Like the Lumineers, they kind of have this, they can really soar up there really high. And Frank Ocean has this heaviness in his soul when he sings songs like Godspeed or Solo. It's like, you know, it's aching out of him. And I thought that was really important for Ponyboy as this young kid that is aching for something that he can't really quite put his finger on. All he can really call it is Great Expectations because he sees himself in this book that he's reading. Um, Singing it with the amazing cast, we got Jason Schmidt, Soda Pop, we got Brent Comer, Daryl, Sky Lakota Lynch, Johnny Cade, um, Rennie McGee, Steve Randall, Joshua Boone, Dallas Winston. We got Daryl Tofa as Two Bit. We got Telly Evans Krieger as Ace. Um, they are all very special people to me. Um, Not just the Greasers, by the way. Everybody else is very special to me as well. But to get to go on this ride with them as the Greasers, right? It's special. It's really special because I feel like I know all of these people's hearts pretty well, not just as the characters, but as the people. Um, and I know that we all are artists. Like we all have that thing that I was talking about earlier, where it's like we're hard on ourselves. You know, even if no one can tell, like we're like, oh, dang, I really wish I did that better. I'm going to do it better tomorrow. I'm going to try and figure it out better tomorrow. We all put great expectations on ourselves. You know what I mean? We're fighting to meet our own expectations. We're fighting to defy other people's expectation of what a musical is. Um, I feel that collective energy when we sing that song, when we sing that chorus. Um, yeah, it's oof, such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song. And I remember asking Justin Levine about it. I was like, the form of this song is so interesting. Like, it feels like, you know, a pop soul song and when I listen to it, but when you really break it down, it's not as simple as uh, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus. It's not as simple as that. It's just it really feels like a semi-orchestral experience, you know, where I'm allowed to, you know, sing with all my guts and my soul. Like it's whew, I love that song so much. And one thing Justin Levine was talking about um how when Fiddler on the Roof was on Broadway, that tradition was written at the last minute, like the 11th hour. And so I always knew, I was like, when he said that in La Jolla, I was like, there's going to be something that gets written last minute that kind of makes something pop. I don't know what it is, but we'll see what happens. Time flies by, yada yada. He writes that section in Far Away from Tulsa, which is pretty much the reprise. The pony boy is just a dreamer. That's what both my brothers say. Actually, John and Zach from Jamestown. I heard a voice memo of them when they first wrote that. John had just woken up or woke up or whatever, grammar. John had just woke up and he was like playing it like kind of like a subdued version of it on the guitar, like very smoky, on the guitar, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's it. Because the phrase "Great Expectations" has always been Far Away from Tulsa, but they kind of made it come to life more and brought back a section of Great Expectations, brought more of that into Far Away from Tulsa, and I mean, and it was at the 11th hour, and it was just, ooh, it is a special, special, special segment. Also, very hard to sing, so I'm very blessed to have some great voice teachers to help me with that. And now that I'm here, I want to say a big shout out to Mike Ruckles, who's helped me along the way. Stephanie Higgins, who I actually just saw. She was my voice teacher in college, but she actually just came through. We sat on 8th Avenue outside and just did a voice lesson for like 40 minutes after the show. She's amazing. And then, as well as, I said Mike Ruckles, Stephanie Higgins, and Joan Lader, who has just been an amazing woman, really great person to talk to about all this stuff. Yeah, I'm very lucky because without them, I would be probably unable to speak to you right now. Yeah.
It is a truly transcendent moment on stage. Brody Grant, congratulations on The Outsiders and the Tony nomination. Thank you so much for talking to Gold Derby today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me just yab on. I love this stuff.